Welcome back, everybody, to the second panelist session. Our topic of discussion today is prepping or preparing for roles in the creative industry. So with us today, we have three powerful men, as we can see. The first is Mr. Stephen Onaivi, and he is the Managing Director of mediaReach OMD, Accra, Ghana. Second, we have Mr. Max Ngari, Executive Director, Executive Creative Director, Dentsu, Kenya. And with us, our very own Professor Olusola Oyero from the Department of Communication and Media Studies at Anchor University, Lagos. So we would have these three professionals speak to us on the topic. We have drafted a series of questions that we want to pose to them in order to get sufficient knowledge of how, as young people, we really want to embark on a journey in the creative industry. And then we also ask all our viewers out there, using the Zoom chat box and also our WhatsApp line, you can feel free to send in your questions at any point of the program. Please feel free to send in your questions, your opinions, and then we will also relay it to our panelists. Yeah. So moving on, my name is Eze Chibuike. I'll be the chief moderator for this session, and with me is Ayoyemi, and together we will be anchoring this wonderful panel session. So our first question, which is just to create a bit of a background on the topic, and I think I should give every panelist an opportunity to answer this question. Now, we've had different opinions over time that creativity is an innate gift. It's a talent that a few people are born with or people are born with. Or is it something that people acquire? Is it a skill? Just like people go on entrepreneurship journeys, just like people go to study courses in university. Is creativity an innate gift or is it a skill? I'll start first with Mr. Stephen.
It's very interesting why you are starting with me, but I think it's fine. So I think one of the key variable of creativity has to be thought in both ways of the questions you've asked me. So there are a lot of people that are born creatives, so it's natural for them. Yeah, so it's an innate talent for them. I think what you see a lot of times in some other guys, I'll put myself in that space as well. I wasn't born creative. I have acquired the elements and the framework of being creative over time. So down to your question, I think you have talents that are true born creative. And when you say it as an employer of labor, you will catch it and know that this guy is actually a born creative. And if you go through sessions with you, you're likely to see that spark come out. But the other way to look at creative guys are basically a set of people that have acquired it over time. So down to your question, I think you could have both words. And the best thing to think about it from an African perspective is that when you see those set of people, either born creative or acquired creative, you need to find a way to harness them. I think that's what I would say. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes. Like I said, we have no right or wrong answer in this place. It's basically, that's why I said, with utmost honesty, and then your opinions really matter a lot. So next up, Professor Oyero, as an educator, someone that has been, in fact, you've been bringing out both the skill and the talent in people. What do you think? Do you think creativity is a talent or is it a skill that is acquired?
Thank you. This conversation about whether creativity is of nature or you have to nurture it has been an age-old debate.
Debates.
Yes. Sometimes it might look like the conversation between the conversation around the chicken and the egg, which comes first, And as Mr. Stephen rightly said, some persons were born creative. You will see it. It's quite very visible in the kind of deliveries they make. And while you have others who will have to struggle through the process by way of training and exposure and learning, and they get to the top. But think about this. If you want to pitch your tent to those who believe in creativity being natural, now, if you don't develop that gift, that talent, if you don't invest in blowing it out, you will discover that with time, it will be lost. And you might be familiar with the situation where you have, small children. When they started growing up, they started doing certain things, and their parents would say, no, that is not the way to go. You have to face your mathematics. You have to, go and read your physics and all of that. And with time, those natural things that they have inclination to visual away. And so that is to tell you that in as much as creativity is natural, I believe that there is a whole lot of effort that you have to put into it to actually bring out the best of that natural talent. And that is why, it's just like this adage that is attributed to, I can't remember again actually, when they talk about perspiration and inspiration, that success is 99% perspiration, but it is 1% inspiration. And so if we think you are creative, you think you are naturally talented, but if you don't develop it by way of learning, by way of development, you discover that that talent will not be there. So generally speaking, I believe that some persons will bring out some gifts that were naturally endowed on them. But I put more emphasis on, the nurturing of whatever gift that you may have. Thank you.
Well spoken, like a true educator, a professor, in fact. But I mean, they always have to back up every statement with emphasis and tales of So finally, Mr. Max, before you answer the question now, your role is an executive creative director. So I would like you to use your portfolio to answer that question for us.
Thanks so much. I think where I'm seeing it from my lens is what is really the definition of creativity, and how do we, from the advertising world, how do we see it? Growing up, as you've heard Professor mentioned, that kids were being told that they are creative, meaning that they showed some form of magic, or they were very good with art, or they could think of funnier jokes or funny stories to tell. Where we see it from advertising, creativity is actually a product. It's the way in which we sell, communication solutions, product solutions to clients to solve a certain problem. And that is in entirety creativity in how we see it. And you have people who work in creativity who are creatives, and depending on their skill level, that's how they get on in their careers. So for example, I'll hire a creative who's really good in art, who's really good in writing copy, and that skill that he has it was a talent, he was born with it, he could really tell stories the best way, or he knows how to draw really, really well. However, he needs to be trained in that process of creativity so that he can learn how to sell it as a solution, sell it as a product that he himself has harnessed over the years. So for me, it was just, how do we look at creativity? How are we defining it? And that in itself is the difference, if it's inborn or it's something that you train with?
Thank you very much. You know, a clear thing from what all three of you have said, I think that we can link to both sides of that debate. Either a person is born, and then there's of course the part of also training yourself. So now, going back to our topic for this session, prepping for roles in the creative industry. So whether you're born creative or it's a skill that you decide to acquire. So I believe Professor Oyero and Mr. Max also mentioned how that even when you're born, you still need to train yourself. So for the young people who are watching, how can they train themselves to prepare themselves for the roles they will take up in the creative industry? What are the practical steps they can take to train themselves to acquire more skills? I think I'd like our Mr. Stevens to answer that question. And yet, it does seem like we're calling on you first again to answer the question.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me very well?
Okay. I think are you talking to me to answer the question?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. If I get your question very well, how would people prepping to get into the creative industry train to be able to cope within the landscape? Is that your question?
Yes, that's correct, sir.
Okay, fantastic. So I think I always tell talents, and particularly the younger lads getting or anticipating to get into our industry. Our industry is not like every other industry. I think majority of success within our industry is predominantly self-driven, if you get what I mean. It's not, oh, you're going to go to school, read a book around advertising. I think Max can confirm this. If you check schools across Africa, for instance, if I take my own field, media planning, strategy, and buying, there is no course anywhere that will give you the detailing of, I stand to be corrected, I'll give you the detailing of the job experience. Prof is also a hit on this call. The detailing of the job, the basic understanding, yes, but the detailing of what the expectation is from a media strategy planning and buying standpoint, I don't think there's any school in Africa that has that. It is not, I don't think it's a default. I just feel that I come back to my first point that it has to be self-driven. If it's not self-driven, you are not likely to get to the peak of your career. So in clear principle, talents need to do a lot of research, self-research. You need to do a lot more to learn beyond what you've gotten from school. I personally believe that the education system is a structure or the way we call it strategy. This is the strategy for you to deliver this campaign. The educational system gives you that framework of strategy. What you now need to do is to go beyond that as an individual and learn. So if you take things that, if you want to do digital, that different aspects of creativity, right? So from entertainment to marketing communication, depending on where you sit. If you want to be an artist, obviously, you need to start learning the key element of production, the key element of music, the genres of music you want to focus on. The more you learn and research on those things, the better you are when you really get out of school and you have to do that. If you think media planning is your interest, you need to start thinking about media planning from a scientific standpoint and saying, what is the new normal in media planning? So you need to start thinking about those things, research it, talk to people around the industry, and be ready and relevant to get into the market to do that. So you see, I box it into research and really get to be personal around going deeper down to know what it is. Unfortunately for us in Africa, I think a lot of us don't go further down to really get to know what we really want to do. I grew up in Africa. I went to school in Africa. My nursery, primary, secondary school, university, everything is in Africa. But what I over time discover is that an average student stays in class, Prof can testify this, an average student stays in class to pass the exam. I think the 5–10% of students is just, let me tick the boxes. Oh, this is what Prof wants. I'll write it, tick the boxes, and I'm gone. one of the key things I'll tell everybody listening to this conversation is that you need to do a personal soul searching to be able to achieve results. Even when you get jobs, there are people that take their first job in advertising agencies. There are people that take their first jobs in creative agencies. The first few months or few years, it sounds like it's a lot of stress. It's a lot of frustration. You need time. You need consistency. You need creativity in what you do. You need learning and development to be able to get to the top. So my point to you guys is that research and soul searching is a key word that I've used to cover the narrative, but a lot needs to be done for you to learn, develop yourself as an individual beyond what you've learned from school.
Wow, that was actually a very stimulating answer. And you really answered in the first session of this program. We spoke about youth creativity and nation building. And someone sent in a question that we didn't have time to take, but I believe you just answered that question. The person's question was, how can our creativity be created inside us? Since most of our exam questions do not give room for that. And you really just answered that question. How do you go beyond your studies in school, beyond what exam questions you bring towards? Well, the answer was that really just go beyond that. Research, like you said, thank you for really in detail answering that question. I'd like to hear from Mr. Mark. Do you have a different view on that?
Not really a different view. I think I can echo what Stephen was saying. And just to add a bit more, I think there's a level of learning that you need to be cognizant and have it as a practice, have it like something you do every day. So our world in the creative world, in the media world, things are changing, new things are coming every day. So for you to be the most competitive in this industry, you have to be constantly learning. And that is a habit that not many people will tell you. They'll be like, either you're doing formal training or you're doing self-training, but that has to be almost like a habit that you gain, because you have to be adept in such a way that you're learning new things, you're seeing the new developments and actually having creative ways of getting audiences to look at it. You need to be selling the same innovation, same new things to the clients. So there has to be that habit of learning and keep it going so that you can be as competitive as it gets.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Mark. So, Professor, now it has. I think they put you in a corner. Yeah, I think they put the educational sector in a corner now, and I would really like for you to answer what he said. Yes.
Why you don't put Prof under pressure? It's okay.
No, I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you.
It seems like outside examination, put in plain words, outside the examination, young people exercise zero creativity. That's for me, that's what I want to put it in summary. So, Prof, this question is for you now. In years of industrial service in the educational sector of media and communication studies, what can you say has been the nature of youth, or what can you say, this is my student, and I know that when this student passes out, he has this and this and this to survive in the creative market or to survive in the creative industry?
Okay, well, before I answer that question, we still have to pass a few comments on what the two gentlemen have said. To a very great extent, I agree with what they have said, but I also want to make it plain here that so many things are changing in the delivery of our content in the institutions of learning. And I'm aware of a number of institutions that have done quite a lot in delivering very great content that make our students readily suitable for the industry. Well, let me say this, the creative industry is so wide. It will be participants will need to identify, first of all, where you want to pitch your tent.
Yeah.
So we're talking of art, we're talking of design, we're talking of music, we're talking of radio, television, and so on and so forth. It's a very wide, so accommodating industry we're talking about here. So that focus is very important first for who is coming in. And then, what are you going to need? Yeah, of course, schools is very important, because there is the intellectual part of you that schooling develops. If you are not an intellectual person, even your level of creativity is going to be so low, because to be creative requires a lot of thinking. And so schooling helps you to develop that capacity to be able to think creatively and then bring out the best in you. Um, and well, maybe in the days that Stephen went to school, so many things were lacking, in our schools then. But I tell you that a lot of things have come in now. I thought, for example, in our university now, we even offer courses and media planning, media buying. I'm not sure you had classes like that when you are going to school.
Nah.
And now, actually now, even we have a lot of interaction with the industry. We now have pitch events in our schools. We give briefs to our students, and they go out there. In fact, all the roles that are necessary. For example, in a typical ad agency, we constitute them into groups. They have a creative director, they have the art director, they have all the positions, and we give them a brief, and they develop something, and we invite judges from the industry, and they come around to judge. Then we give awards and so on and so forth.
Prof, I think it's very soothing and exciting to hear, because it's one of the narrative I've tried to push across my small group and say to them, when you see talents, I practically interview talents every week, literally interview talents every week. What you see across, and I've journeyed across the region as well. So I've journeyed across different markets in the region. What strikes me, this is from an African perspective, and I am a very passionate individual when it comes to Africa, when it comes to the content around Africa, when it comes to advertising around Africa. So one of the things I used to tell when I was growing up, as in when I say growing up, doing a core job in advertising, running campaigns, one of the things I used to tell clients is that Africa is a different DNA. You don't take a creative that you think works in the UK or in the US and just slap it on Africa and say it's a, so, and I'm very excited about this era of being a programmatic-led approach to planning and a niche approach to making sure that content is native. So if I am a football fan and you're trying to target me in advertising, you need to say something that relates to where my affinity is highest. So basically those things are there, but I'm very excited because the truth about these things are, if you take Africa as a continent, there are natural tendencies of looking at Africa in such a way that we know that is different from every other part of the world. So the point I'm making to you is that one or two schools, I think this thinking that you have might be applicable to, or what you're saying might be applicable to a few
institutions.
Institutions. That's what I was going to. Maybe predominantly, maybe, I don't know what school you come from, but you sound very, very strong in terms of pragmatism when it comes to teaching and application to job. Very strong. So where I'm looking at it from is that as a holistic element as Africans, how do we make sure that we start taking this narrative that you're putting on the table and push it across government schools, government institutions? I am in Nigeria, and trust me, I will say what you're saying might be applicable. Just to give a good score, 10% of universities in Nigeria. 90% of universities in Nigeria, if we want to be candid to ourselves, are not likely to tend towards where you are. So I think it's just the objective of this kind of session is for us to remind ourselves, to say, guys, the world is changing. I'm not stopped it. The world is changing. We need to find a way to make sure that the younger lads listening to us get out of school, and 65% of the time, people like us interview them and feel like they are ready to get into the grind and do the job. All the tidying up of making sure training and development, trust me, we have, from where I sit, we have a very strong structure to do that. So I agree, but how do we expand it across from Nigeria to Ghana to Kenya to Kigali? So basically, how do we make sure that, because I think we have a very strong advantage as Africans. I think that's what I would say, just to complement what you said.
Mr. Stephen, yeah. So from what Prof just said, from what Professor Olusola just said, I can see that I think there's sort of a meeting point, and I think we can use ourselves as examples of the meeting points with what you just said now. So personally, we're not trying to debate, but then I'm a graduate of mass communication, public relations, and advertising, to be very specific. Now, as soon as Professor said something about the fact that our educational system is changing, I am also a product of that change in the educational system. Now, we have courses that actually talk about media planning and buying. I've worked in agencies where I've actually had to plan media right from my 300 level. I already knew what copywriting was. I knew what brand management was talking about. I knew what briefs were. But then if we ask advertisers of, let's say, even 5 years ago, most of them, as at their final years, they did not really know what advertising briefs were. So yes, definitely, Ayoyemi is also a product. And then just like what he said, that a lot of partnerships over time have come in. You see agencies trying to offer internship opportunities. You see, so different people send in briefs, and then they are trying to tell the students that outside the creative industry, it is far beyond your exams.
Yeah.
So the more you actually, and now it also does the same thing said about youth trying to be self-driven. Aside the fact that you're trying to learn intellectually, you have to still tell within yourself that still outside my examinations, outside CA test and continuous assessment, this is what I have to do. So Ayoyemi would further just the next question would be for Mr. Max, and then you will even see further on what we are trying to like drive the conversation at.
And you know, one very special thing about that, we've established the fact that you know, the younger generation, we have to be self-driven in order to should I say really get the best because of the creative opportunities that are available to us. Yes, the educational sector is changing to accommodate the difference in the industry and to grow the young people. But at the end of the day, like Mr. Steve said, the young people are not taking advantage of what they have even within their tertiary institution. Nothing will be made out of it. And so that begs the question, okay, fine, the younger generation needs to be self-driven. But it's also the question of the opportunities they are grooming themselves for. Are those opportunities self-made or are they already provided to them? So if you know the younger generation and current students of tertiary institutions, graduates have done all to soak up all the learning opportunities that they can find and that they can make them for themselves. The opportunities to show forth what they have trained themselves, are they self-made or are there already opportunities like that in the industry? I'd like to hear from Mr. Max on this.
Thank you for that question. Let me just begin by saying that, number one, the advertising 20 years ago had, maybe go a bit back, advertising 30 years ago had 3 people in a creative department. So there was creative director, your art director, you had your copywriter. Right now, most agencies have guys like content creators. You have in-house photographers, you have food photographers, you have UX designers. All these are opportunities that have been created. They were not there before. So to your question, there's a lot of opportunity and it's up to you to create those opportunities, to see how better to engage people and kind of curate your own way into this industry. So yes, all of us would like to be creative directors one day, but then maybe in 30 years, there'll be a robot or an artificial intelligence that is the creative director. So we need to be super inventive and come up with these opportunities and, be creative about actually creating them.
Mr. Stephen, I'd like you to maybe not echo what he has said. As someone who, just like you mentioned earlier, you interview talents basically every week. Every week is a new talent. So are you telling us now that today, tomorrow, next month, there are opportunities for fresh graduates, both internship opportunities, mentorship opportunities, employment opportunities for them? Are you telling us that?
Max is putting me on the spot, right? He's putting me. Okay. I think your question is very apt, and I'll feed up on what Max said. Trust me, yes, down to direct response. Yes, there are opportunities, and if I won't be in this industry if there are no opportunities. The only thing I tell people is that you need to stand out. You need to stand out, because when you finish from school, if I take Nigeria as an example, there are about 200 million people in Nigeria. What that means is that if you put up a vacancy in Guardian newspaper on Thursday, it used to be Thursday, I don't know whether it's still Thursday. So if you put up a vacancy in Guardian newspaper on Thursday, trust me, you're going to have volumes of application. And as an employer of labor in advertising, I will be looking for the best. So the best in terms of not just, oh yeah, talent and creativity, yes, but the best in terms of attitude, the best in terms of determination, the best in terms of the guy that you feel like this guy can go all the hawk to deliver the results for the clients and the business. So because there are opportunities, yes, and I like what Mark said. When I started media planning, it used to be like, oh, you know, not too long ago. So don't think that is 30 years ago. So when I started media planning, and that's on an average, maybe 12 years ago, right? The scale of change that has happened within a decade, trust me, is amazing. And when we started media planning, my bosses used to tell me, Stephen, when we have to do media plan, we used to write the media plan, TV, radio, write everything, put it together, go and give it to the client. The client will look at it. I don't like this. They come back, adjust. In fact, it got to a point where they said they used to use pencil to write. But we all know that's a long story. But what has happened with the change and digital narrative is that you have as simple as, when it says content guy, even content creators, you have segments, lifestyle content creator, tech content creator. You have specialization happening. So I think there are a lot of opportunities. It's how you make sure that you stand a better chance of being the guy that will be accepted on that table to take up that responsibility. That's first part. The second part of your question is that if it's self-made, I think there are a lot of self-made creatives right now. There are people that do digital media buy from their homes. There are people that do a lot of content from their homes. There are bloggers, for instance. I see amazing work being done by bloggers. I must commend the youths across the region, because you see the level of engagement from a blogging. I just take a segment from blogging. The level of engagement, the level of content and determination is huge. So whether it's from a standard process of getting the job and self-made of trying to look for your own success story in terms of the way you use creativity to run the industry, I think those opportunities are available. The only thing I will add, just to end this part, is that the only thing I'll add, we are working in a global setup. The world is faster. When we were going to school, the world is becoming a global village. The world is already a global village. So you can tweet. I know what Donald Trump tweeted this morning. I practically know what I tell people before that maybe when we're younger, maybe there's a war somewhere, you don't know until like a month after. Oh, the war started a month ago. But right now, if there's a blast somewhere today, with a split of seconds, we have the video, we have the detail, people are making comments and people are having conversations. So what that means is that as Africans, we need to be very competitive. As you get out of school, think about yourself. You think about your market as the world. Don't think about, oh, you know what, I want to create a campaign for Ghana. Oh, you know, my creativity is Ghana specific. If you think about it that way, I want to see African youths or young people leaving the continent and win globally. That's what I would say. But if you think about it from a global perspective, your learning, your initiatives, things that you do really need to compete globally. I think that's what I would have to add to it.
I think so. You just, in fact, you just answered the question and then even added more light because while reading for all our viewers, while reading Mr. Stephen's profile, I saw that he has this he's one of those people that competition is key. And then there's a difference between having healthy competition and then rivalry. Something that is just, it's petty because you want to go into competition because you want people to notice you, you just want to get noticed. There's the healthy competition that would take you from Lagos State to Nigeria, Nigeria to Africa, Africa to the world, anything outside that. If there's like an intergalactic advertising competition or an award to be won, probably you would even go and represent Earth at that. But then, now from that, I really want to ask Professor Olusola this question. As somebody that is in the educational sector, as somebody that has seen over 150 or thousands of students pass through your learning process, do you think that African youth would be able today, tomorrow, in the future, to change the way like Africa has been made to look like either it's a dead continent, it's a continent where creativity dies, it's somewhere that technology has no room, it's somewhere that the government will continue to tell the people that, okay, after school, look for a job, after school, go and learn a trade. Or do you think that today and tomorrow, let's stop calling them the future leaders, they're leaders of now. Do you think that students that you have produced, do you think that citizens or youth out there, do you think that they can change the African narrative from what it used to be?
Well, the question shouldn't even be whether they can change it, because they're already doing that. Okay, youths, just like Stephen mentioned, so many young guys are all over the place doing very great things, around, and of course, maybe one of the reasons why they have to do that is also because of some of the things that Stephen has said. Because you just have to take the whole world as your parish because of competition here and there. And again, too, when you think of the economic dynamics of this environment, it could stifle life out of you. I do know in recent times, organizations, agencies, and all of that have to struggle through, the economic challenges, and that has actually forced people to be creative. They have to put on their thinking cap because it has narrowed the space when it comes to job deliveries and all of that. And because of that, people have to think of what to do. And in the process of that, that's why individuals are coming up to see what they can do. And I have students who are on their own since they left school. They never worked for anybody, and they are living comfortably, by putting together what they're learning in school, and then by being creative, they have been able to, carve a niche for themselves. Some of them just decide to go into photography, even go for competition online and be able to get things done. There are those who have been able to go into production, short films, and so on and so forth. And the truth is that if the youth don't change that narrative, I don't know who will change it. They are positioned to change that narrative, and they are doing it already. What we just need to do, just like Stephen said too, he was so concerned that we need to push this, so that it's not just limited to just a few select young people. It has to go around, and I agreed a lot with him on that, because even some of the things I said we're already doing, I do know that quite a lot of institutions are completely neglected or excommunicated, and it may not even be their own fault, because when you look at, for example, look at how many months federal universities have been on strike, and the state universities, they have a lot of issues they are contending with, that those things will not even allow your creativity to manifest. And so, but I do believe that as we, for example, I belong to a group, African Council for Communication Education, where we have engagements on what we can do for our students. And in recent times, there is an idea that came out about unbundling what we call mass communication. Very soon now, you're not going to have mass communication in Nigerian institutions, because we know that field, has a lot of opportunity to offer. And so let's ensure that people concentrate on things that will help them to deliver appropriately. And so with all of this, with continuous engagement, with people getting to know what we're supposed to do as educators in institutions, and our youth, they are very versatile, they are very savvy as far as technology is concerned, and many times they have gone ahead of us in knowing what is happening all over the place. So they will definitely change that narrative, whether we like it or not. Even if they don't want to, the situation, the circumstances around will force them to change. So they have no choice in this situation.
Thank you very much, Dan. We'd like to remind our audience that the question and answer is beginning now. And if you have any questions for our panelists, you can send them right now. And one major takeaway that I came from during the landscape has shifted from young people being passive when it comes to prepping for roles in creative industry. Literally, you have to be active and power in your hands now. You're not just going to sit and wait to see what opportunities to scroll by. You literally have to take the opportunities yourself and create those opportunities. And Mr. Three said something very important, which Professor Oyero actually talked about, and that was the fact that you use yourself so much that you cannot help but be noticed. The world is your parish, and if you use yourself, train yourself so hard, it will be very hard for the world not to notice you. Just like to take a couple of questions. But while we're waiting for the question, one question I'd like to ask Mr. Martin. So if we're shifting the strength of prepping for roles from the hands of industry to the hands of the youth, like, you now be active about building yourself. How do you think that will change the nature of the creative industry? Will an increase in youth, will an increase in the number of youth, able and capable youth in the industry, actually change the quality of output that the industry brings out? I want to hear from you on that.
Very interesting question. I think, number one, I think this was mentioned earlier, that there's actually there's a lack of formal training when it comes to the creative industry. Like, for example, in Kenya, we have a few schools which teach around advertising, media buying, and so on. So if we have a conscious effort to actually increase the places where people can learn more about our industry, then of course, the more the merrier. The more creative people we have in the industry, the more creative work we see, the more creative products become, and the more businesses start seeing creativity as a very essential thing while conducting their business. So of course, we need more creatives. We need more people out there thinking about problems and how to solve them. We need more people thinking about African problems, and having innovative solutions. And so far, it has only been creative agencies that have given them that platform to actually think this way. So yes, if we can, maybe start more communities where people talk about creativity, or mentoring spaces where they can come there and they can get to be groomed by someone who's already in the industry. I think that'd be a really, really big one.
So thank you very, very much, Mr. Mark. So in summary from this session, honestly speaking, it has been very encompassing and inculcating, and I don't have all those big words. From maybe I'll come and meet you someday to give me all those bonus words that we used to hit to emphasize on stuff in the industry. But then the key drivers I've been able to get up this discussion is that we need persistence, we need more research youth need more soul searching. It is not just by opening your phone one day and putting hashtag #EndSARS. It's not just by coming online and saying, oh yes, this is what I can do. This is what I can do. We need people to take realistic steps towards joining the creative industry. If you are not creative enough, if you're not competitive enough within yourself, then why present yourself as a useful candidate? So I feel like that's one of the things that should be on the mind of every youth or every young individual who feels that they need to embark on a journey in the creative industry. Now, we also have the faculty that says that whether it is a talent, whether you're going to learn it, whether you have to go to an academy, whether you have to go through several trainings, whether you have to go to a certain creative studio to learn the process of creativity or to follow a certain path, even within the creative industry. It is both a talent, and it is even better if you can learn it, if you can get the proper acquisition, if you can immerse yourself into the creative industry. If it is copywriting you want to understand copywriting, research about it. Do a lot of programs, go through courses that will further help you understand the copywriting division. So I think with that, I will just ask each of you to give us a 1 minute, just on a final note. If you are faced with
please hold on to it. Before we have the final note, I believe we had a question from one of our Zoom participants that would like to just briefly take.
Okay, the question says, how will the approach, rather, the issue of illiteracy is affecting creativity in Africa? Because it is one thing to come up with creative ideas, and it is another thing to communicate it to the audience that you want to speak to. So the person is coming from the point of illiteracy. So I am not well versed in communication, for instance, but I'm creative enough. I have the idea. How do I still put it out there to people?
And how would the audience understand the idea that I'm putting forward?
Max, you want to take it or should I take it?
Let me take this one. So kind of like a chicken and egg situation where, you need the chicken to get the egg and you need the egg to lay the chicken. So, but there's something that holds very true when we're actually communicating to people is that the same people have a way of language. They have a way of passing messages between themselves. And all you're doing in advertising, all you're doing in an agency is finding a unique way to intercept those messages, to be in the middle of what they're talking about. So being understandable, if you can speak the language, if you can kind of understand the nuance of what they're speaking, and you do it in the right way, do it in a manner that they get you and they get what you're trying to sell to them, then you have them. So, of course, I won't go to a French market and start or place where they speak Pidgin and write in my own mother tongue from Kenya. I won't do that. But I have to, one, understand how they speak, understand the cultural nuances, understand the culture around how they speak about these things, and find really clever way to intercept this, and then now sell them what I want.
Thank you very, very much for that, Mr. Max. And then there's another question which I feel, Mr. Stevie, you would be very, 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 very keen to answer that. It's actually a tight box question, but I guess you just have to answer it for our audience. So the person said, a lot of agencies require job applicants to have a very strong background knowledge and most times experience of working in the industry. How can young applicants have these when some of these agencies do not even take them for internships? So basically, our audience, our participants asking, you haven't even taken me as a student, as someone that wants to learn. How would you then offer me a job after I graduate from the university?
And you expect me to have a strong background knowledge and experience of working in the industry. So how do I have that
You put me. I am trying to put the answer into a perspective that is understandable. So pardon me, I'm just trying to explain it with a practical experience. And if you don't mind, I would use my experience. So this is my first job after school. I don't know if you get what I mean. Anybody listening? This is my first job after school. When I finished school, I finished from the University of Lagos, and my first degree was philosophy. I wanted to do everything around marketing communications. So pardon me, I need to use my story to answer that question. Because I wanted to do everything around marketing communications, I clearly understand PR. I did a lot. I published a campus magazine in school. People that know me know that I published a campus magazine in school. What that means is that I was writing narratives, I was writing publications, I was publishing works like campus activities. I did activation, so I did events. So if you know Awolowo Road, 1145 was the in thing then on Awolowo Road in Lagos. So we did a lot of activations, and these activations are not activations that you talk about from a campus experience that you say you would just want to have fun. We had brands being part of those activations because the consumer experience is very key for us. So what I'm saying is that after school, my friends were getting jobs, like good jobs in banks. You have my colleagues that finish school, they buy a car after 6 months of working. But that's not my job. That's not my thinking. That's not the way I want to. I can go get a job in a bank. I can go get a job in a telco just came into the market that period. People were getting jobs with Econet. People were getting jobs with Glow. People were getting jobs with. So, but the point is, if I have to do those things, what that means is that except they are putting me in a marketing communications department, then I am okay because that's what I really want. But I wasn't fortunate enough because I studied philosophy to fit in organically to say, you know what, I'll fit into marketing communications. So I ended up taking a decision of saying to myself, if I've looked at everything, that's where the knowledge part comes in terms of research. I have looked at the industry. I can conveniently do account management in a creative agency. I can conveniently work in a PR firm. I can conveniently work in an experiential agency. But when looking at everything around marketing communication, where I think I had a flaw, proper understanding is media planning, strategy, and buying. I didn't know jack. The first day I got exposed to media planning, strategy, and buying, it's very detailed and scientific. I didn't know jack about it all through my school days. So I told myself that, yes, if I can confidently do every other aspect of marketing communication, all I just need to do is to enhance it, read about it, and develop it. I don't know jack about media planning. So the point I'm making to you guys, I took my first job. If I tell you the salary I was being paid when I took my first job compared to my peers, trust me, a couple of people will tell me, Stephen, I don't think you're serious. Because from this experience, and I will answer your question, but I had done my first degree, I had done my master's degree, I had gone to School of Media and Communications to study media. I had done those things. So in my head, as an African or as a Nigerian then, I'm still a Nigerian, sorry. In my head, I will be like, oh, after going through all this school, will I be paid so peanuts to get into this job? But I told myself, that's what I really want to do. And this is a company that if you look at it from a global perspective, it's one of the best companies if you really have to do media planning that you want to work. So I took that decision. I remember my employment letter. My fiancée, then now my wife, asked me, Stephen, you're used to making money on your own when you're in school. Are you sure this salary will be okay? And I told her that, you know what, this is what I want to do. And I gave the story I gave the narrative, and I'm like, okay, no problem, let's go. But the point is, ask Africans today, young talent. I'm still a young guy, so it's not. Ask young guys today if they look at their salary or the expectation of their salary versus their peers in oil and gas, versus their peers in banking, versus their peers in other consulting firms. Are they willing to say, I want to grow? And looking back in the way I've journeyed through my career, have I regretted that decision one bit? No. So the point I'm making is that we need to consciously say to ourselves, if I were in like 21, 22 today, and I fall into this space where the question is coming from, I don't mind. I've seen people in an interview session where they tell me, Stephen, I want to learn this job. And for the purpose of this session, I've seen somebody tell me, I want to learn this job. I'll work in this company 2 months, 3 months for me to show you that I can do it. But a couple of people that will do that, if somebody tells me that, trust me, I'll put that person on the roll and tell you 1 month, 2 months, and you deliver the way you expect, the way you're thinking that you have, the talent that you think you have, you deliver exceptionally well. There's no employer of labor that will tell you. They might even pay you 2 months, 2 months that you spent and say, you know, this guy, I don't want to lose him. But how many of us as Africans are ready to do that? So I leave that to the feedback for people to. I've seen a lot of conversations around people talking to me to say, let me do 2 months internship. In my office, I have interns in my office, but for me to take you as an intern, I need to see that determination that I talked about. I need to see that level of creativity. I need to see that level of focus. What I will urge a lot of young lads to think about is that the attitude to work, the attitude to delivering excellent service needs to really be the core that will take you far. That's what I would say. But whether you can get into the variable of, oh, they expect experience, you earn experience. I've told my daughter, I have a 10-year-old daughter, and I've told her, when you get to a certain level of secondary school, instead of traveling to the US or the UK for holiday, I'll put you in an office. I'll put you in a tech office. I say, go there. You're not, I'll pay, you'll still use, what do you need? Take transport to the place, eat food at home. You don't need any other thing. But when you work, the way I'm going to is that talents in schools need to find a way. How many times have we had holidays? What are students doing? They're chilling. Yeah, I'm a party guy. You can, as a youth, don't lose your youthfulness. You need to party. You need to enjoy, groove yourself the best way you can. But that core element of training yourself is very important. So why not take, you know, this month, this holiday, I'm going to do work in a PR firm. If you write to 5 PR firms and say, don't pay me, I'm going to do voluntary job for 1 month, I'm sure out of 5, 4 will respond to you to say, come in. And if you build a positive attitude, the time you finish school and you're starting to look for a job, you've gathered a lot of experience. Trust me.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Stephen. And yes, that draws us to the end of this panelist session. It has been a very, very, like I said at the beginning, this was going to be like, well, yes, the most engaging so far, because the truth about it is that youth want to get into the market. Every time they always complain about unemployment. But the truth about it is that from what the two of you have said today, the real power to actually be gainfully employed, whether in an agency or within yourself, lies within yourself. In our hands. So thank you very, very much once again, Mr. Stephen Onaivi, Mr. Max Ngari, and Professor Olusola Oyero.